So, both Mac and Clip, I think, have sort of tough exteriors. Yours is more like, I'm going to kick your ass. Yours is more like, I'm going to kill you with my mind, and the smart person in the room. But you clearly want to be loved and accepted. Like, why do you think the characters show those tough exteriors?
Camryn, would you like to?
Sure. Tiff is kind of lonely at first. She is an only child. Her parents work a lot, and she is a person of color in the 80s. Let's start off there. And then I think she turns to technology to fill that void a little bit. And so she does build up that hard exterior because I can say she's faced a little bit of discrimination due to the color of her skin. And kids can be mean, let's be honest. So she has formed that hard shell, but these girls, Mac and KJ and Aaron, they really kind of break that down and they make her more soft on the outside after their companionship and their relationship grows and develops, I would say.
And for Mac?
For Mac has grown up in a really rough household. She's kind of adopted a shell that will protect her from that, and it's just really what she needs to survive. But unfortunately, that has sort of become who she is over time. However, after being exposed to these good influences, she's able to let that guard down a little bit, and she's able to actually take the time to figure out who she is, what she likes, who she actually wants to be, other than this shell that she's constructed for herself.
You guys are fantastic. So great.
Yeah. Thank you.
How was it on set with the 4 of you girls? Did you bond instantly? Did you have group chats? How did that go?
Here's the thing. Okay, so we all booked the roles. We knew who everybody else was going to be, but they asked us not to talk and to DM and text each other before we actually met in person so that we could meet like our characters. So I knew who they were for like 4 months, and then I kind of broke the rule. The night before we were about to meet, I texted, I'm so excited to meet you tomorrow, and we had the tiny one. We didn't do anything that we weren't supposed to. I just said I was happy to meet them tomorrow. And then we just, once we met, I feel like we clicked instantly, and because we bonded over our shared experiences. And then we went and got ice cream, and we did escape rooms, and we did laser tag to bond further throughout the shooting of the series.
And even just with filming, being in a scene where we're all running and cramped in tight spaces and stuff, it was like an apocalypse boot camp, and we were kind of forced to get to know each other, whether we liked it or not.
Yes. Last one? Okay. How is diversity and inclusion threaded the Paper Girls series and graphic novels?
Ooh, I would say it's sort of one of the main threads in this huge yarn ball of stuff that's happening. I mean, you have these 4 paper girls, which I can't recall another show about or movie or anything in which features the paper girls. No. You know, and each one of them comes from very different backgrounds.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, what would you say to that, Camryn?
I would say that the show is very diverse and very inclusive. I think no matter who you are, there's representation in it for you. Like, there's female representation. We had 4 female directors. There were females in the writers' room. There's very heavy female influence on this project, and also there's a lot of race representation in here as well, and diversity. So, like, I'll say it again. Whoever you are, I think there's a piece of this show for you.
This is maybe a bit of a difficult question. On stage, they talked about like the queer storyline for KJ. They didn't really talk about Mac's side of that. And obviously in the comics, the big thread of the character is like the internalized like homophobia, and that she's quite homophobic. I don't know how much this first season gets into that, but like, how did you feel about, I guess, like going through that journey with her, or knowing that journey is to come? Because, you know, you're going to assume that, you know, you wouldn't have agreed with that, you know, that take for her. So how did you kind of feel when you knew you had to approach that angle of that queer story?
Right, well, I would say that Mac is definitely, she has a lot to work on at the beginning of the series. We see she has backwards opinions on just about everything. She has she's quite aggressive in nature at the beginning. And I would say for approaching any of those plot lines, just understanding who she is as a person and and just letting it affect you in the moment, in the scene, you know?
Yeah.
I think as far as Mac's sexual orientation, maybe that's more of a question for one of the showrunners as far as the depiction in the series, but
Yeah.
I absolutely love her journey in the comic book series.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful, and I'm really honored to have been put in my hands such delicate and stunning material.
Fair enough.
Now, in the series, I've watched all 8 episodes. Again, you guys are great. The girls have potty mouths. All of them. And how did you feel as actresses, and also at your young age, and how did your parents feel? The using that type of language?
I would definitely say Sofia had it the worst with the potty mouth. But I feel like I don't really cuss. I don't.
Me neither.
I think I feel no need for it. But Tiff does when she feels like, okay, let's make an impact, this is needed, or if she just thinks it's fun. Because I mean, they're 12. You go through that phase where you think cussing is cool, and I think she's at that right now. My parents, we had to ad-lib a lot on set sometimes. So my mom would be like, when you ad-lib, I don't want to hear any extra cuss words, I don't want to hear any extra, don't throw an S word in there, better not throw an F word in there. So there was a lot of that, but I would say the writers were amazing, and I think all the cuss words really were very well placed in the show.
Actually, as far as cursing goes, when I got the audition, I was at my grandfather's house, and to say the least, he's not a huge fan of bad language. And so I remember during the audition, I was trying to keep it as quiet as possible, approaching those words, just as quiet. But it's interesting because with Mac, at the beginning of the series, she uses a lot of bad language. And it's funny because if you're really looking towards the end of the first season, you see it slowly starts to disappear a little bit more. She's not using it as a crutch as much.
What would you tell kids about living in the 1980s?
Tell kids about living.
Kids, you're 12-year-olds now, because you've lived in the past now for your thing. What would you say about the 1980s?
I would say it wasn't all great, but they did have good music, good movies. Like the music was really good in the 80s, and I really do like the fashion.
Yeah.
The fashion was good.
I would probably say the same thing.
Don't mistake nostalgia for all that the 80s was.
Yeah.